Board of Supervisors for Monday, June 21st, 2021 into order and have roll call and public notification.
Dana Heller.
Here.
Bob Anderson.
Here.
Sam Buchanan.
Here.
Don Horstman.
Here.
Bill Efforts.
Here.
Bert Skinner.
Here.
Bill Heineke.
Here.
Bob Rogers.
Here.
Oscar Scope.
Here.
John Banks.
Here.
Terry Lee.
Here.
Carolyn Bartlett. Here. Pam Paul. Here. Bill Stradle.
Present.
Gary Textall.
Here.
Jim Gorst.
Present.
Gary Nelson.
Here.
Roberta Mosentine.
Here.
Pete Olson.
Here.
Steve Johnson.
Here.
Carol Moen. Here. Eric Panier let us know he wouldn't be able to make it today. Louis Oki.
Here.
Russ Renzi.
Here.
Todd Gerlin.
Here.
Jerry McRoberts.
Here.
Mark Thompson. Mark. Glenn Hansen.
Here.
Stacy Wenzel. Here. Okay, so we have 27 of 29 present at this time. IDA and Cook County Clerk have complied with open meeting public notification laws. Meeting notices are posted on the electronic meeting notice board on the first and second floor of the government center and the main floor of the justice center. A hard copy is in the public meeting folder just inside the clerk's office window. In addition, all 5 county newspapers have been notified. And this agenda was posted by Wendy Coleman on June 16th at 12:46 p.m.
Thank you. Our invocation will be by Pastor Floyd Lundy of the First Baptist Church in Barron.
Thank you. Let's pray together. Our Father in heaven, the one who is hallowed and honorable, we thank you, Father, first of all, that we live in a land that's free, a land where our government, local and national, is given to us and is voted into existence. We thank you for the freedoms that we have. But Lord, we're also aware of the intense need to preserve these things through local meetings, through local government. And so we pray, Father, that you would give great wisdom, great passion and compassion to each person present here tonight, that each one would have the wisdom of God to know what your will is and what is right, that each one here present would be motivated by the common good of our community, of our county. And Lord, we would pray that this body would move our citizens, our county forward as we seek to better our community, as we seek, Father, to just make it a finer and a nicer place to live. Lord, bless this meeting, and we'll thank you in our Lord Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 3, special matters and announcements.
2 things. Number 1, I'm happy to announce that Jen Jaco informed me that Barron County won a $25,000 grant for our Meals on Wheels program, and we will be replacing a vehicle for the Meals on Wheels program. And just so you understand, let me give you some statistics on the Meals on Wheels. Over 400 participants receive a nutritious meal delivered by friendly drivers pretty much every day. From 2019, over 80% of the meals, they continued to live independently. So in retrospect, understand that those 400 people, if we didn't have Meals on Wheels, would probably be in a nursing home. The Meals on Wheels has expenses have increased from $501,268 in 2019, $791,605 in 2020. It's a 70% increase in service over the last 5 years. So, our Meals on Wheels program is very successful, and we're really happy that Jen won that award. Also, I sent out today a waste to energy document entitled Scientific Truth About Waste to Energy. That's in your inbox. I've also printed out 3 black and white copies written by PhD Marcus Casaldio from New York University on waste energy. So if you want to have an interesting read, that would be something to spend some time on. Thanks, Lloyd.
Thank you. Item number 4, approve the agenda. Motion by Supervisor Anderson, seconded by Supervisor Hanson. Anybody have any problems with the agenda as stated? Not, all those in favor of approving the agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion is carried. Item number 5, approve the minutes of the May 12th, 2021 and May 21st, 2021 minutes. Motion by Supervisor Heineke, seconded by Supervisor Renzig. Do you have any concerns? Not, all those in favor of approving those 2 sets of minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion is carried. Public comment. We have 2 of them. First one is Jennifer Lenbon. Could you please come up to the mic, state your name and address, and tell us what's on your mind?
My name's Jennifer Lindbaum, 1126 25th Street, Cameron. In an attempt to address what we view as an unequal application of constitutional rights and unequal protection under the law, we are bringing this to the attention of the County Board of Supervisors. After bringing our concerns to the State Attorney General's office, we were told by the state that this is a county issue. Although we understand that the board's ability to take any corrective action is limited, we thought that it is important for the board to be aware of the actions or inactions taken by both the DA and the Sheriff's Department and what we see as an arbitrary application of law. We have 3 concerns we'd like to discuss with the board today. We recently had several trespassing incidents on our land. The trespasser cut several large trees, brush, and damaged our property. The Sheriff's Department measured the damage to be 37 feet across the surveyed property line. One deputy told us our behavior was childish for reporting the trespassing incident, although it's clearly stated in the criminal code. We have asked deputies several times why no citation was given, and they either ignored our emails or told us to contact the DA. We have been told by law enforcement that the trespasser is often angry, has a short fuse, and is not able to be confronted. We also understand that this trespasser has a spouse, but that is a Byron County employee. Another concern that we found incorrect information in our deputy reports. We arranged a meeting with the county administrator to address the issue and also the sheriff. In the meeting, the sheriff stated he didn't want to cite the trespasser because it would empower him. We feel the opposite. By allowing the trespassing incidences, this gave the trespasser even more empowerment. We think the sheriff knows the trespasser well. When questioning the sheriff about why no citation was given, he made the following statement in regards to the citation amount. If that is what you want, I can probably get him to give you the $300. We were not aware that the sheriff has the authority to assess monetary fines for a crime and then pay those damages directly to the victim of the crime. We informed by the DA that any such action would potentially be a crime. Next, we had a meeting with Sheriff Fitzgerald and DA Wright to try to resolve our concerns. The DA told us that the trespasser had implied consent to be on our property on 3 separate occasions. We do not understand how this helps to prevent crime when we were told by deputies to notify him not to be on our land. We were told that a 4th incident would likely bring charges, but we don't see that happening. We were told that confronting the trespasser could actually warrant harassment on our end. We were directed by law enforcement to notify him to stay off our land, and we don't see how that could lead to harassment charges. When we questioned the DA about the sheriff's statement, he said, "Is this the hill you want to die on?" Our concern is not only for our own situation, but the potential that other citizens and our neighbors in the county will be subject to similar actions by government and law enforcement officials. The Lenbaum family has been part of Barron County for 5 generations and have never had a trespassing incident before. We value the preservation of our land and hope that the future law enforcement will assist in preventing crimes by holding people accountable for their actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and you did do a good job. I think you emailed it as well as handed it out to everybody, so supervisors are aware of your situation, and thanks for talking to us. Second public comment will be Ray Zeman. Would you please come up, state your name and your address?
Thank you for not denying my time. He knows what I'm about to say, that's why I said that. My name is Ray Zeman, your plant manager at the Waste Energy Facility. And I'd like to take this time today, just a couple minutes, to formally announce my retirement plans. And September 15th, it's opening the bow season. It'll be good. But why am I retiring? My wife made me do it. You know, there's a lot of things. You know, the reason I want to announce it is I respect this board enough that I want you to hear it from me. You know, not the paper. The paper does a great job. But I don't want you to hear it from a job posting or rumor mill. You know, I want to tell you the facts. So, and it's not due to lack of enthusiasm that I'm retiring, or you know, anything else, or I just enjoyed my time in Dean City. I would not retire if I didn't think that it was going to be continuing down the same road that we've been doing for the last 4 years. Very confident within the abilities of the staff that they'll just continue on with the roadmap that we've laid out, and it's a good roadmap. You know, this board about 4 years ago made a tough decision. Keep it going. Well, I'm here to confirm that you made a good decision. One of my priorities before September 15th, I got several, but one of them is to make sure that we got a good transition. I don't want to transition like 2017. And there's only a couple of things that I ask of this board, and they're pretty simple. Is just continue believing in waste energy. And if there's somebody here that doesn't believe in waste energy, we need to have a talk. And just continue to support the staff that's at the incinerator. They are second to none. The relationship that I've had with Mr. French, my boss, and several other county employees has been awesome. Very, very respectful and very professional the entire time. And that's about all I got to say. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff French and Louis Oakey were part of that team that was discussing whether we keep that waste energy. And I'll tell you, this county owes you a great debt of gratitude for what you did. Your initiatives, your leadership of that team is beyond reproach. It's unbelievable what you did. Without you there, I can say I think that plant might not be there. So we thank you and wish you good retirement. Thank you, Ray.
Louis?
Yep.
I think it's one more thing to say that probably without you being there, it definitely wouldn't have been there. I think there was, you had to turn quite a few heads to get, you know, mine included, that, you know, where we were at before.
Yes.
I mean, you turned something that was not going well at all to something that's a shining star.
I had a lot of staff also supporting, and that's very important to keep going, is supporting that staff.
It's a big asset for the county, and it'll probably be a model for what's going to happen in the future in this country, because it's certainly a way of the future in my mind.
He's a long-time member of the board out there. You know, he's passing off a lot of stuff on the staff, and he's the one that guided that staff, because I was out there when the county, before the county took it over. Late great, I call him, Chuck Christensen and I, sometimes Jim Gores, other people went over the bills every month. I could see already then that he had that thing under control of all the things he did and all the staff. So he's kind of passing a lot of credit off on them, which is fine, but it takes a leader, and he was a leader in his leader. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
Well, if you would have held off there on cleaning up all that scrap iron, the scrap prices went up considerably.
Oh, you made one move. All right. Okay, thanks again, Ray. All right, item number 7, the zoning ordinance is policy of holding a public hearing when the rezoning is denied. Do we have a resolution? No, we can speak to that. Yes. Okay.
Okay, we on? Sounds good? So, the question, as I understand it, is that if the petition for rezoning comes to the zoning committee and they're not recommending approval of that rezoning, but they're sending you a report, or the way we handle it is by sending you a resolution denying the rezoning, can that, instead of sending that back to the county board as we have, can that just be held as a public hearing before this body and then make a decision so that this body would have an opportunity to hear all the information that the zoning committee heard? Did I understand the question correctly? The short answer is no. And I'll explain why that is, and give you an idea of what you possibly could do in lieu of that. But the reason is that, under the statute, under 5969, the county board may create a planning and zoning committee as the county board agency. So that's what we've done. We don't have a zoning commission, we've got a zoning agency. And I'm not talking about the zoning department, I'm talking about what statute designates the zoning committee as the representative of the board. So then the board is allowed to amend the ordinance, change zoning districts. And when a petition for amendment of the county zoning ordinance is made by the property owner or some other folks that are allowed to do that, the petition shall be filed with the clerk. The clerk will immediately refer it to the county zoning agency for consideration, report, and recommendations. Upon receipt of the petition by the agency, it shall call a public hearing on the petition. So the public hearing portion is the first step that happens when the zoning committee gets the petition. So they hold the public hearing. And so logistically, it would be difficult for this board to hold a public hearing because the zoning committee doesn't know yet what they're going to do. They haven't gotten the facts, they haven't heard the petition, they haven't decided the issue, haven't discussed it. They make that decision, so it's as soon as possible after the public hearing, the agency shall act on the petition, either approving, modifying, approving, or disapproving. If they approve it, they'll cause an ordinance to be drafted and send that ordinance to you for consideration. If the agency after the public hearing recommends denial of a petition, it shall report its recommendation directly to the board with the reasons for that action. And the way we do that is the zoning report is also attached to a resolution to deny the petition. Then here's the language that comes into play for us. Upon receipt of the agency report, the board, and this is if they sent you an ordinance to approve, may enact the ordinance as drafted by the zoning agency or with amendments, or it may deny the petition for amendment. Now here's the language that applies, or it may refuse to deny the petition as recommended by the agency, in which case it shall re-refer the petition to the agency with directions to draft an ordinance to effectuate the petition and report the ordinance back to the board, which it may then enact or reject that ordinance. So, the process is, I know it seems like a waste of time to say, we're sending it back to you, you don't get to take any action on it, you don't get to take new evidence, you don't get to do anything except for draft an ordinance and bring it back to us to consider. But that's the way the statute lays it out very specifically. What you can do is if the zoning committee is going to, or one thing you could do is that if they're going to send you a resolution to deny a rezoning, you as the board can ask them to give you a very detailed report of what was the extent of the testimony at your public hearing, what was your discussion, what were your reasons for denying it, specifically spelling those out. Or you could simply tell the people that had filed a petition, we're denying this, we're sending a resolution to county board, it's going to be there on the third Monday of next month. If you want the board to hear your side of the story, come to the public hearing, make public comment, or the county board session, make public comment, and they'll take it up. So, like I said, the short answer is you can't replay that here, but you can provide other avenues, but you can't just say we're gonna zoning committee, if you're gonna deny it, we're just gonna hold another public hearing and do it that way.
So our legal counsel has spoken. I would suggest what we do is if that situation happens again, that we do like we did last time. We'll see, if we want to send it back to them, we send it back. When it comes back to us though, have, like John suggested, have a lot of detailed information. We can't really hold a public hearing here, but if they give us enough information, we'll have enough facts to make an informed decision like we did last time. So I think we just have to handle it that way. Go on. Anybody got a problem with that? Okay, then that's what we'll do. Okay, number 8, zoning ordinance amendment, rezoning the town of Oak Grove, Christopher and Sarah Drost. Did I get a motion to approve that rezoning? Motion by Supervisor McRoberts, second by Supervisor Heller. Is there any discussion on that? Supervisor Rogers.
Want to add one or change one thing in the zoning report that's a part of our packet. Item number 4 says it will create noise, dust, or significant changes in there's a not missing.
Oh, okay. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I'll talk to our other committee members. Are you in agreement that should be a not?
Motion to approve, if they want to add that. Whoever made the first motion. to approve.
Jerry McRoberts, is that your motion to change that, Jerry?
Just a minute to that.
And
Will not create
I'll second that.
Okay, good catch, Bob.
Just a 3-letter.
Yeah, I do.
I thought you were.
Good thing we got a lawyer heading up our zoning.
Oh, no, it's not.
Forever. All right, is there no controversy? We got a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving that indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Okay, number 9, resolution establishing the 2022 Barron County budget preparation guidelines and timeline. Can I get a motion to approve that? Motion by Supervisor Bartlett, second by Supervisor Olson. It's the same thing we have every year. Exec did it. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? If not, all is in favor of approving that resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Again, it's unanimous. Thank you. This next one, I'd like to have a roll call and hopefully get a 2/3 majority on it. It's a resolution authorizing the purchase of trucks for the highway department for the 2022 budget year. I get a motion, Supervisor Gores, second by Supervisor Mosentein.
Serving, I want to speak to this.
Well, does anybody have any questions? I mean, it's pretty self-evident. Here's another department head that does a hell of a job for us. And he cares about the highway department. He's always thinking ahead. He makes his money. No, I gotta say the truth. But does anybody have any questions about what he's doing here? We did it, I think, last year too. It's just trying to procure the stuff at the most reasonable price in the timeliest manner you can.
And this is not unusual, is it, Mark?
It's not. What's unusual about this one is that we're asking the county board to encumber the funds before you budgeted it. In past years, we've come budgeting, say October, November, we've asked for the ability to bid out the vehicles after the budget has been taken care of. But we're being told it's a year out and price increases are insane, so we're trying to get ahead of it.
It's something that's beyond our control.
Absolutely.
And being proactive, without that,
It costs us
it
thousands.
could have cost us money and time. Any further discussion? Now we'll take a roll call.
Bob Anderson,
Yes.
Stan Buchanan,
Yes.
Don Horstman,
Yes.
Bill Efforts,
Yes.
Bert Skinner,
Yes.
Dale Heineke,
Yes.
Bob Rogers,
Yes.
Oscar Schob,
Yes.
Don Banks,
Yes.
Carrie Lee,
Yes.
Carolyn Bartlett,
Yes.
Pam Fall,
Yes.
Bill Stradle,
Yes.
Jerry Textell,
Yes.
Jim Gores,
Oh, sure.
I don't have that. Gary Nelson,
Yes.
Roberta Mosentein,
Yes.
Pete Olson,
Yes.
Steve Johnson,
Yes.
Carol Moore,
Yes.
Eric Pender is absent, Louis Oki,
Yes.
Russ Rinzig,
Yes.
Todd Gerlin,
Yes.
Jerry McRoberts,
Yes.
Mark Thompson is absent, Bud Hanson,
Yes.
Stacy Bunzel,
Yes.
Dana Heller,
Yes.
27 yes and 2 absent.
Thank you. So, motion is approved. Item number 11, survey remote attendance at county board and committee meetings. Just a little background is, it kind of started with Supervisor Renzig, indicating that, I think we've got our COVID ordinance till the end of the year, that we suspended our rules and procedures. So we're talking about really after the first of the year, but Supervisor Renzig was being proactive. Hey, you're taking out papers in December, being an election next April. We should discuss whether it's appropriate to allow unlimited remote attendance or how we should handle it. So, but then Supervisor Nelson also on the other side of the coin said, hey, doing all these upgrades, there's COVID to come back, there could be a lot of things happen, after now, why change the rules and procedures now? Why don't we wait and take it a little slower? And I can tell you, looking at our rules and procedures, we're gonna have to change them anyway, waste away, once this COVID thing is over. So eventually, we're gonna have to address this. And as you look into this, Jeff's gonna mention this on the radio too, that in case anybody's running, of course, he gets such an audience of people running, that they're gonna know that, this could be an issue, but, we have, basically it came down to, on the county board meetings anyway, that there were 11 people that said 4 or more, including unlimited, should be allowed for, vote attendance, and there were 7 of them that said 2 or less. So obviously, it's a decisive issue. I personally would like to wait a little bit. I want to take it up before December, but I'd like to see, there's some, this variant, our upgrade, although who knows when that's going to happen. Just I'd like a little more time. We got the survey results. Give us a little more time to think about it. Because eventually we're gonna have to, somebody's gonna make a motion here for a number, either it's unlimited, or you can't go remotely, or here's a number that will allow. So, and that's going to require 2/3 vote to change our rules and procedures. So, anybody have any heartburn with, I don't want to kick the can down the road, but it actually is, let us have some more time to evaluate the situation. Supervisor.
When are they gonna complete the remodeling of this?
Jeff, we don't know, Gary, that's a great question. As of yet, the state hasn't even approved our plans. And those plans were to be approved in like a month or 2 months ago. And then the state's not doing the plans, they're doing them in order. And so, don't have an answer.
It's not only the state, but there's a problem with materials and contractors. It's gonna be, I don't think it's gonna happen this year.
Doesn't the state have 60 days to review time?
Not anymore. They changed it.
Governor changed it and said that we're gonna take the Department of, the DSPS, you're gonna take your in order.
Does anybody have any heartburn with waiting a little bit? Supervisor
No
McGrath?
heartburn with this problem right here, but I was just thinking the money will be put aside that we already have, we've already said, give you this much money. I'm trying to think of the figure, I don't remember.
Jody will
80,000 or
appropriate it.
whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Jody will take care of it
But
the
then
second
we put
meeting.
aside, okay.
And, budget process, we might have to kick a little more in because the thing's gonna go up. So it's all part of this budget process. Okay, if hearing no concerns, we're just gonna let it sit for right now and go on our COVID ordinance.
Hey, what we're talking about is the Barron County Housing Authority looking at rehabilitating the units that they own. And if you don't know, let me give you exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about Burger Woodland Manor over here at 611 Woodland Avenue. That's a 24-plex of 1 bedroom, elderly and disabled. Parkview Manor in Dallas is an 8-plex of 1 bedrooms, apartments, elderly and disabled. Riverview Manor in Prairie Farm, 8-plex, and Lakeland Manor in Turtle Lake is an 8-plex. Portland Manor in Elmina is an 8-plex. Norvinshute in Hagen is an 8-plex. And then we have Margaret Avenue are 3 duplexes with 3-bedroom family. So what you have up here, folks, if you can see this is what I've asked Meg, and this is what a typical 1-bedroom apartment for the elderly and disabled looks like right now. What the Housing Authority is going to be asking this board to weigh in on sometime between now, as what I know today, and the end of the year is to look at the possibility of rehabilitating these 70 units through what's called a low-income housing tax credit, and it's in my update. But basically what happens is you hire a person to apply for these credits, go through the state and federal government. These credits are issued out on the open market, and a group of investors, or perhaps one wealthy investor, will buy up a certain amount of this debt, and it will qualify for low-income housing credit under federal and state law. That's how they get their rate of return on the loan that they give you, is the credits that are issued by the federal government flow to the person who gives the cash to this. So what happens is the Barron County Housing Authority, as it would be structured, as I understand it today, they would own the land. They would continue to own the land. But the buildings that are going to be rehabilitated here, or potentially will be rehabilitated, are transferred into a limited liability company that encompasses the housing authority and then the investors that give the money for the rehab that gets the credit. So then this is bid out through appropriate state law. It's put out on the market. As I put in my update, you're looking at a market in Johnson, or a big company will come in and rehabilitate these apartments over a period of time. And obviously there will be some money spent to move these people as necessary if they're inhabited, or you do them one at a time, or it's over time that this gets done. They're rehabilitated, and then they're back out on the market with these low-income housing credits for about 10 to 15 years, because that's the length that the tax credits last for the people who gave the money. At the end of the 15 years, the buildings would be transferred back to the housing authority. So that's a very short synopsis of what we're talking about tonight that could be coming in front of this board in the next few months. So what's going to happen next is the property committee is going to go at their July 12th meeting. They're going to actually go to Berger Woodland Manor over here at Woodland Avenue, and they're going to look at the apartments, and Meg is going to give them, essentially walk them around, show them what we're up against, and start talking about what the next plans are going to be. Jody and I have talked this over with Sean Lentz, our financial advisor. You know, obviously we're very aware that we just borrowed $25 million, and we've got to ask some very appropriate questions. So potentially today, again, this is probably going to change. What would probably happen is we would probably issue they're talking top dollar in the area of $7 million to rehabilitate these apartments. So what potentially could happen is $3.5 million could go out on low income tax credit, and then $3 million out on the general obligation of the county, or some combination thereof. Don't lock those numbers in stone. We're a long ways away from having this happen, but it's an avenue to get these done and rehabilitated, and have the elderly and disabled have a place to live without us issuing general obligation debt to do it. So with that, that's a really high level thing. Maybe there's questions that I can answer, but there's a guy down at UW-Madison, Tom Landgraf, it's in the update. This is what he does. He does things like this. He would write the specs. He would go out, entertain the investors. Who are they? They're typically some type of a bank, typically a Minneapolis bank, or a Madison or Milwaukee or Chicago bank. Just the research I did, it's probably a big bank out of Chicago or Cleveland will come in, and for their investors, they will issue the $3.5 million loan for their investors to get the tax credits. So that's how that works. So question on this, but
When it's transferred into that other thing, where does the rent go?
the rent, yes, the rent then would be paid by these people, would be paid to the limited liability corporation, as I understand it. Because all that's left owned by the housing authority is the land on which they sit. The reason, and that's a good point, the reason that these can be used for low-income housing credit is because the housing authority pays a payment in lieu of taxes, and that qualifies, they pay that payment in lieu of taxes to the city, which allows them then to get that tax credit on their federal and state income tax return.
And if we didn't do it this way, that $3.5 million, you use your numbers, would have to be borrowed. We'd have to borrow $7 million. This way, we're getting those credits from these other wealthy individuals to do this. Plus, for Megan, there's a lot of, if you do it that way, there's a lot of other government monies that flow into it via grants and stuff, so on the surface, it looks like the way to go, but the devil's always in the detail.
And I want to jump in right there. You know, I think we agree that we would want Sean to look at that cash flow. We've talked about having Sean look at the cash flow analysis, or actually, I would spend, if I was on a board, this board, I would say, look, we want to pay Sean to analyze what Tom Landgraf has analyzed. You come before us and say, you know, these are legitimate numbers. This makes sense to me financially, or no, it doesn't make sense to me, and why doesn't it? And explain it. Because obviously, if you don't know, at the end of the day, the housing authority still is responsible to the county board. So at the end of the day, the county board could always say, you know, it's a really good idea. No, we're going to borrow $7 million on the property, on the general obligation levy, and do it. You don't have to do that because you have these opportunities, as Louis is saying, to have these other investors come in and do this. Apparently, there's a market for this. I was not cognizant of it. I don't know why I would ever be, but apparently there are people that this is what they do. They go out and buy these credits, and they want them on their tax return.
Fills out their individual income tax return. It's
So do we still need a housing authority to manage the building?
Yes.
yes.
Yes, the housing authority would be a partner in with the LLC.
Question,
Yes, go ahead.
are there any other housing authorities in Wisconsin that have done this,
Yes.
and have they been successful?
The only one that I know of is down in Dodgeville, but when we talked to Sean, he was going to do some more research and get back to us.
And Sean has evaluated his individual before. Gary's the head of our housing committee. He's on top of it, and they're doing references. They're doing a lot of things to get into the details.
And at the end, after the renovations that are in, the county still owns the property, still has rights to do what they want.
Yes, that's a good point. My understanding is there'd be an agreement between the LLC and the housing authority that after the 10 or 15 years, the buildings are transferred back to the housing authority, and we'd be right back to where we were today.
And potentially in better shape.
Yes, we would hope so, because they do have a sinking fund. Understand, these are not trash. They're just old. They're, you know, these, we were playing football when this thing, okay, to be honest, we were playing football when these things were built. So that's how old they are. That's a while. It's a bit, okay? I wouldn't want to get hit again. So, no, these were built in the 70s, and they've been there, and they've had a sinking fund. You know, they've done things like carpeting and the windows and siding and roof have been taken care of, air conditioning, but you're talking a major renovation, something to get them a lot nicer than what they are today, get them out and get them rented to the elderly.
This Vegas lost some potentially good renters because of the current condition they're in versus some other ones.
I put the grapes in first. It's really over.
He was 16
I know they
then.
have to move the people. Or where are we moving the people?
Yep, probably have to move into a motel for a while. That's right, yep. And I want to jump in right now because something's popped into my mind. I took the liberty of asking Bob Swirsky from CBS Squared. Obviously, this whole board knows him. And his number one cautionary was Jeff, every one of these I've ever gotten into, we have found like a mold problem or a something's leaking problem or a roof isn't right problem. So I would want to tell the board going in, yes, $7 million might be a quote up front, but it's certainly not a rock hard number once you start tearing into walls from a building that's 40 years old. So that's the downside. How big of a contingency is this board willing to put on $7 million?
Well, the
So when they-
alternative is
when
do
they-
nothing and lose the building.
When they sit there and go into remodeling them and stuff like that, are they gonna like go in and do a whole building at one time or a certain amount of apartments at one time or what, how are they gonna do that?
Meg said they'd like to do a certain number of apartments at a time, and this Tom Landgraf was telling us, correct me if I'm wrong, but he said he'd like to get the construction company so they could probably do it over several winters, Jim, so when they're not quite so
Okay.
busy in the summer. And we're talking about a complete rehabilitation, tearing out the walls, the plumbing, the electrical, tearing them back to a certain point, capping them, and then putting them back in. That's in new cupboards, lighting, you know, put in LED lighting. And then the talk is too, is because we've got property on the east side of Barron out here, is also looking at probably maybe a solar field, which is something the state wants you to do when you do this.
Yeah, Bob.
But
Did you say that when they're paying into the LLC, who gets the tax credits right now?
There is none.
There isn't.
Okay, but when they're paying into the LLC, then they get tax credits off from that.
The residents would pay into the LLC. The people who give us the money, the cash, they're the ones who get the tax credit on their tax.
All right.
These are
That's-
wealthy individuals.
That's how they get their
That's
rate
how
of
they-
return.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was listening to Representative Armstrong on the radio this morning, and he was talking about a horse will flush with COVID-19 money. And if you wait long enough, you can pretty much use it for about anything because there's so much money that's not used. Is there a possibility of using any of that money for this? Plus, the other thing is, we all have to be aware of the stress of trauma transfer for these residents. It can kill them.
It's huge. I don't know, Gary, if this would qualify. I will tell you that in my research that I did lately, the HVAC upgrades at the campus, which we've postponed, in my opinion, today would be fully ARPA funded, and that campus is ours, and that would be something that wouldn't go on the taxpayer if we did this. And if we could split this 50-50, I would like to get those tax credits, because you're getting in some other investor to help rehabilitate this for 15 years. I'm open to it, but I would like the board to at least look at the idea of HVAC upgrades at the campus with that ARPA money.
I think Representative Armstrong is kind of on top of that.
Yeah. Yep. No. And, okay, yeah, two things, by the way, two really good things in the state budget that hopefully gets signed next week is number one, our tipping fee exemption for the waste energy plant is in the budget. That's a huge plus for our waste energy plant. Thank you, Ray. Number two, the upgrades to the diagnostic lab are in the budget, which would be huge. Because that you're talking 4 or 5 full-time doctors of veterinary medicine moving into the county, which would be huge economics for that. So that's a little off track.
That's the resolution we passed on the WCA last year, and our Representative Armstrong is.
So other questions on what the housing authority is thinking about? It's preliminary. I appreciate the property committee is willing to look at this, and we'll tell you more when we know more. So other questions on this? Second item on my update is for us to look at the Ann Street School. We'll show you some pictures, just some, and this is going to be, has already been, can you make that big? Okay, so this is an aerial of the Ann Street School in Rice Lake. Something that since actually the building was built in 1960. What we're talking about, this is the Ann Street School. This is north, this is the river up here. This is Ann Street School. We own this whole square we own this whole area in here. This is owned by the county, and I guess as far as I know, has been for more than a century, we've owned the land. This building was built in 1960. I believe it was the start of the technical college there before they transferred it. But since 1978, this has been used by Rice Lake Public Schools for their usage. They've now told us that they're going to vacate this August 31st, and we'll be getting it back. The Community Support Program rents a building on the north end of Main Street. When I brought this up to Stacy Frolick, our Health and Human Services Director, she was very excited to have the opportunity to move down here, which resulted subsequently in us talking about it, department heads, it resulted in Jen Jaco, and if we can we show what the inside looks like? Jen Jaco said, can we keep going? One more? Yes. So this is what it looks like now. And Jen Jaco would like, if you can see where my pointer is, basically she'd like to use this entire area. You have a small kitchen, but she would like to use this for Daybreak, which currently is up at the Rice Lake Senior Center. I'm in your way over here. And so our community support program, public health, possibly Head Start, could use the western side of this building with Daybreak, Aging ADRC using this side. So the property committee has authorized Steve Olson to go ahead and look at what it would cost to upgrade this because it doesn't have air conditioning. The school didn't use it in the summer. So we'd have to put some air conditioning. At this point, I'm indicating I don't think we would improve this kitchen at all. It would just cost too much. We could probably improve the kitchen at the campus for creating Meals on Wheels for that area of the county. I believe this building, in the best of my opinion, is well suited to be used by the county with some upgrades to the HVAC. Steve Olson has told me that the roof will probably go another 5 to 10 years. The doors are okay, the windows are not. The school told us that when the property committee looked at this. The windows are single pane from the 60s. Not this year or next, but sometime we're gonna have to do some improvements if we keep it. So the money that we would not be spending in rent for the CSP program, we would come down here and take this over. The school district had a budget of $33,810 for this building. We're spending $24,000 up at the CSP, so it's almost a dollar for dollar trade-off. So this is something that's going to come back to the board. I'm thinking in July we'll get some prices, what air exchanger is going to be, and get it improved and use it. And this is a very, very nice piece of property downtown. We insure this building for $2.8 million. That's what the insurance is estimated fair market value. It's on a prime location. Steve Olson tells me the west side of this building is, west side of the property, excuse me, is used quite a little for people to put their canoes down the Red Cedar. So again, it's an update, and you'll be making a decision whether or not you want to put the HVAC, but in my opinion, everything indicates that every dollar we put in HVAC would be covered by American Recovery, because it is for people that need our services, whether they're coming there for public health, community support program, mental health, all those things qualify, and we would equitably serve people. So, and Daybreak is elderly population, so yeah, this would be a good, in my opinion, a good building to hang on to, and the property is really invaluable.
So the area that you're sitting here talking about for Daybreak is something like about 70 feet by, or
Yep, probably this area right here.
50 by 70 feet or 80 feet?
But see, this is open, Jim, where they can do
Right.
congregate things here, and then if they want to go over here and, do something else, this is a small kitchen. We would definitely not use it as an industrial kitchen, but it'd be things that they could do together. Questions? Okay, continuing on. Chetek Dam. So this is something that's in process. You're gonna make this bigger. Something that we're working on. Actually, Lori, I wish Mark would have stayed, but Lori, our engineer tech, and Steve Olson and Officer Wolf are looking at this, but this is the Chetek Dam. If you don't know this, if you can slide down, this is an aerial of the Chetek Dam. This is, here we go. This is the dam right here, actually built by Andrew Tainer way back in the day. But we're looking at, property committee is looking at doing some improvements, because down here where my pointer is, this is heavily fished. And so we're looking at some basic improvements with lighting, doing some schemes to keep this user friendly for the public, something that probably would be budgeted in 2022. If you're ever in Chetek on a weekend, drive by there, because this is a road that goes by. Ray's manned recycling sites down right over here somewhere. So it's a great location. A lot of people fish.
What road was that? You were showing earlier, what road is that?
That's a city street. That's a city street that comes off the bridge. It goes down, then it hooks around and into Main Street.
What, is that bridge, is that on the side?
It's Lakeview Drive.
Yep, this is Lakeview Drive. This bridge goes out to the airport. Yeah.
Got it.
Isn't there a cemetery over here someplace?
No, wrong bridge.
Wrong bridge.
Oh, wrong
Cemetery is way up here.
Okay.
Way up.
Wrong bridge.
Yeah, there's a South Quick Trip down here. Yes, there's a Quick Trip.
Oh, all right.
And we own on both sides. There's some things we can't touch. Tyler's telling me down from the spillway, there's an area that we have to keep to absorb if it would ever run over, if we get a terrible, 15-inch rain. Here, there's areas here where we have to keep it so that if the water would run around the dam, it would be some absorption and then come back in here. So we can't improve all of it, but it's a good idea. I think it's a great idea, John. John Banks Supervisor Banks actually brought this up. Well, hey, what could we do to make this more user-friendly and get some lighting? And so it's just, again, an update for the county board, some things that we're working on, and we'll put in 2022. Questions? All right, continuing on my updates. The Superior Silica Sands tax assessment, that was a private matter that they won against the Department of Revenue. Jody's gonna budget for that appropriately for our part that we have to repay. The Turtle Lake tax deed property, the executive committee talked about this. The person who wants to buy it is continuing to do due diligence and working on that and give them a little extra time to buy that and improve that. I put in my update who the Ag Commission Scholarship winners were, and appreciate Oscar who's online and Russ for their participation and work in that. That's when we sold the old lime fund, one of the things is to continue to do ag related things. And then Jody, your item 12G with the MD&A.
Sure, that is just something that's gonna be going in with the financial statements. So it's in your packet. I just invite you to read through it. It's just some statistical things and just highlights of 2020.
We're done. Oh, sorry. Then my appointments.
Okay, appointments for zoning board of adjustment, reappoint Wald Oregon and Amy Kelsey for a 3-year term. Commission on Aging, reappoint Sharon Rollins for a 3-year term. Tax Incremental District for the City of Barron, appoint Gary Nelson. ADRC Governing Board, appoint Dr. Mark Bennett. Can we get a motion to approve those appointments? Motion by Supervisor Rogers, second by Supervisor Schradel. Any concerns? Not all those in favor of all those appointments, indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
If you oppose, say nay. And all covered. 14, claims, petitions, correspondence, we have none. The next meeting is July 19th at 7 p.m. Do we have any suggestions for future items? You said the
Dean Street
School.
School.
School. Anything else? No, we're not meeting at the campus.
This issue of this stress testing, what happens with that? I mean, they're just venting to us or what?
It's a civil matter. It's not our issue.
It's been vetted by the sheriff, by the DA, and all that stuff. If I were you, you can read it and let it go.
Any updates on the highway building?
They're having a facilities meeting tomorrow. If you're really interested and want to get into it, like, what time is that, Pete? 9 o'clock here?
No.
Highway. Anything else? If not, we'll adjourn by unanimous consent at 7:53. Thanks, everybody.
Yes.